Welcome out to the show tonight, guys. It's Studio 321. This is your host, Eddie B. So, what's going on around Florida? Okay. So the other day I was reading, had some time on my hands. I was reading through some of the changes in the laws around Florida. Um, I did a previous podcast on the concealed carry laws in Florida, how they changed and all that stuff. And I like to look at the details, but I like to zoom out and try to get the big picture of what's actually going on in an area. Like, what's the overall goal for Florida or for any state for that matter? But, I live in Florida, so I'm always interested in what's going on around me. So, something occurred to me the other day, and, because I was looking through all these laws, and a lot of the laws have been updated and recently changed. And, you know, it seems to me that Ron DeSantis and Florida in general are trying to become like the model state for conservatism in America, right? Now, we've always had the really conservative states like Alabama, Tennessee, places like that. I never really thought Florida was in that category, but we're really starting to look more like that. And actually, I feel like us in Texas are doing a lot of things that are very similar to each other in our laws. Okay, so I wanted to go over a couple of those examples, and so I wrote some of these down. So in 2023, DeSantis passed a law that allowed death penalty for child rape under the age of 12. Now, I had remember hearing that, but I never really paid attention to it back then. But then I came across it the other day, and it's actually gone into effect. And I was like, wow, man. Because look, I'm a proponent of the death penalty. I think there should be more of it. I think they should shorten the time on it. I think it should be so many appeals, and then you're done. This 20 years stuff. I think that's completely ridiculous. You're on death row for 20 years. Half the guys end up dying of old age before they get executed. They need to revamp that, and they need to stop all that. I'm thinking like a 5-year window. Give these guys speedy trials. Make sure to get their appeals. Give them speedy trials, and let's get it over with so that people can see. People need to be able to relate the penalty to the crime. We're all outraged about when we see something terrible happen, but then if the guy gets put on death row, he doesn't get executed for 20 years, so nobody remembers what happened or why the guy got executed. Well, part of that is supposed to be deterrence. So, you want to remember the crime, how terrible it was, and now you're seeing the execution. It's a reminder not to do things like that. You know what I mean? But anyway, so death penalty for child rape under 12. I love the idea. Those are the worst of the worst kind of people, man. You know what I mean? And it's just like some of these heinous murders. They deserve the death penalty. We need to, send a message to these people that they're the worst of the worst and that we will not tolerate that type of behavior. And when we start executing them, the people on the left always want to say, oh, there's no proof that it's a deterrent. Trust me, it's a deterrent, okay? No matter how bad a person is, 90% of the worst people in the world are still scared to die. So if you're threatening them with death, it's going to make them think about it a little bit. So next, we've got the concealed carry laws in Florida. Those I did another podcast on those. Obviously, when we went from needing a concealed carry permit to not needing one at all. Now all you have to do is concealed carry. You can't have it on your side or out in the open. But as long as you're not a convicted felon, you're allowed to carry a weapon now, pistol. And I love that idea. But again, both these are very conservative laws, and they're both just adding to the conservatism push in Florida. And I'm for it because, again, the podcast that I did a check-in to see if there was any, because the left was saying, oh, there's going to be a lot of murders and a lot of deaths and a lot of homicides from the concealed carry laws changing. And man, I looked into it. There's been hardly none. Okay. So that was all bull as well. Also, I did a recent podcast, which this is very interesting. I know that DeSantis and his crew are trying to um, eliminate or limit property tax in Florida, which I'm totally for. Okay, um, I know they're working on it now. I don't. I know they're going to get a tax. They're working on some major tax credits for property tax. Um, I know they're going to try to completely eliminate it. Now, there is going to be some stipulations, like, if your home is homesteaded in Florida and it's your primary residence, then you wouldn't have any property tax on it. If it's a rental property, something like that, of course you're going to pay property tax on it. But for homesteaded properties, that would be eliminated. And look, that's like I said on a podcast, that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. You hear stories all the time of people, working all their life, pay off their home, fall on financial ruin. Their house gets taken away because they can't pay the taxes on it. It's terrible. If you've paid your house off, you've paid your dues, you shouldn't have to pay any more on it, and you shouldn't have to worry about it getting taken away, and then re-auctioned off. That's terrible. And it happens. It happens quite a bit in Florida. You can go out and buy those tax deeds all the time. That's what those are. So yeah, just again, it's another thing, low taxes, tough on crime. I mean, that's all conservative ideas right now. And it seems like DeSantis is just going down, checking the box, trying to get them all passed. And then you have the tough on crime. Of course we've had a lot of the sheriffs on TV lately. They're talking about the rioting that was going on up north, and they're saying, look, if you riot in our area, you're going to jail. If you try to harm our police officers, we're going to put you in the grave. And there was some controversy about all that stuff being said. That was the sheriff from my county. That's Wayne Ivey. And let me tell you, that guy's a great sheriff. He's great. Okay, does a great job. Obviously, there's we have crime here. But for the most part, our county's great. I mean, I don't fear anywhere I go. There's really no need for that. I mean, again, there is crime, but it's definitely not at a high level or out of control. It's not. We have our police officers, they talk tough. Again, that's a deterrence, and I believe in that. When people hear somebody say that, like Wayne Ivey said in his speech on TV, they understand that that's not a place to mess around. All that does is makes it a nice place for the normal citizens. It's a bad place for the criminals, but that's that's how it's supposed to be. But again, so when you zoom out and you look at the big picture of all of this, what you see is Florida is really trying to lean into that conservative vibe that's going on right now. Trump has turned the table so much in the United States. You can see the culture, changing. It seems like it's even longing for more conservatism, and get that tough on crime, just really tightening things up so that normal folks can just go on, make a living and not be bothered. The low taxes, that's conservative stuff as well. The Democrats, they want high tax on everything because they want to take your money and redistribute it the way they want to do it. But that never works. That always ends up messed up or going into some scam and ending up back in their pockets is what happens. But I'm thinking, honestly, that DeSantis is going to try to run for president again. I think he's going to try to run in 28. Look, I love the guy. He's a great governor. I personally don't think he could beat J.D. Vance. I love J.D. Vance as well. I love them both. But I know there's definitely room around in the cabinet somewhere for DeSantis, or maybe he comes back to Florida as a senator. But the guy is a great governor, okay? Again, he's leaning into that conservative idea, and it's doing great for Florida. It really is. I can't say enough good things about him. If he gets that property tax, abolished, then I'm going to paint his face on the side of my house. because that would be, actually, I think that would be the first in the United States to do that. And think about it. Stuff like that usually sets a trend, because if he gets property tax eliminated in Florida, then the other conservative states are going to look at that and go, because what's going to happen then is everybody's going to, I mean, we're getting a lot of people moving here now, but everybody's going to want to move down here. You know, it's going to bring a lot of big money people. And then all these other states are going to look at that and go, if we want them to come to our state, we're going to have to do the same. Now, I know that they were saying one of the hangups is, you know, obviously when you eliminate property tax, you're eliminating billions of dollars for the state, right? And so they're trying to figure out right now where the money can come from, you know, because some of that money goes to schools and whatnot. You know, they don't want to hurt that balance. But I'm all for it, man, because, you know, we just got to tighten up. And I'm sure that if they do eliminate the property tax, it's going to force the government in Florida to tighten up even more, to budget. But that's the way you want it. You don't want them to have coffers full of money to spend all the time, because if they do, they're going to waste it. It's a fact. You know, it's like when you're running a budget at your house. You know, if you got tons of cash all the time, you're just going out spending it on dinner, doing whatever, right? But when you're limited on a budget, you learn how to make that money last. And that's how you want to keep local government. You don't want them to have a ton of money to spend all the time, because they'll just waste it. But anyways, guys, I just kind of wanted to give an update on Florida. I really feel like our state is really leading the country now. And also one other thing, you know, I have kids in school and I see what's going on at the schools all the time. I feel like that is taking a conservative twist as well. I believe that, you know, they're hunting down, well, I don't know if hunting down is the right word. They're seeking out and getting rid of a lot of these weirdo woke teachers, okay? And I think the curriculum down here is really going to start focusing on just the way it used to be, you know, reading, writing, math, English, all that, you know what I'm saying? No more of this other cultural garbage that they're not supposed to be teaching kids anyways. They're supposed to teach them schoolwork. And I'm really excited for the future. I think that this state is getting set up to be number one. I really think so. You know, we have a lot of people moving down here for that reason. I see Northerners all the time, you know, just coming down here in droves. But yeah, we'll see. I'll keep you updated. If there's anything new, I'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, man, keep Florida moving. We love you, Ron. Keep doing a good job, and we'll see what happens. Thanks, guys. This is Studio 321. This is your host, Eddie B. I'll talk to you soon.